everyone. My name is Larissa Kennedy. My pronouns are she, her, and I have the joy and privilege of being president at the National Union of Students. And in collaboration with a lot of organisers, a lot of activists, a lot of officers across the student movement, we're bringing you to this evening's digital rally, and it's really a pleasure to welcome all of those streaming. So wherever you're streaming from, please drop a comment to let us know who you are, where you're based, and why you're joining us. Because I know why I'm here and why so many of us are here. It's because we're sick and tired of a government that has shamelessly exploited students over the past term, but because we know that we've got to channel that exhaustion, that frustration, that anger into action that through collectivism has the power to transform our education system and our world. And we've already seen things changing. We've already seen them transforming, not least through the rent strikes, huge win at UOM that energized so many students across the country, sparked rent strikes at Sussex, at Cambridge, at Goldsmiths, and the list goes on. And we've just seen a massive win as well. And the government is conceding on one of our demands and contributing £20 million to student hardship funds. So, as we're nearing the end of this term, let's take that energy and come together to let this government know that the fight is not over and we're coming back bigger and bolder in 2021. And we're not just tinkering at the edges, we're not just asking for crumbs, we're actually grasping at the root of these injustices, pulling back the curtain on the very system that enabled them. So at the core, we're calling for democratization, and decolonization of our education system, because education is a right and a public good that the government must treat it as such. We need a recognition of the exploitation we faced and a financial support package that reflects this, putting money back in students' pockets. And on top of that, we've got to centre solidarity with staff who within this marketised framework are continually posited as disposable when they're anything but. We need democratization because rather than fat cat VCs sitting in their ivory towers and making decisions about our safety, education should be about the students and staff and communities that exist to serve, and it should belong to us. And decolonization, because we can't be accepting the replication of anti-Black police brutality, the hostile environment, and the hyper-securitization that are reifying the oppression of students of color in particular. But I'm going to keep my contributions and my words brief today because and I want to end it there. We've got a long list of student organizers who've been doing visionary work on the ground over the past few months, work that's, tangibly moving us towards this vision. And we've also got some incredible guests, including uni staff, politicians, political commentators whose words I hope will inspire and empower you to continue to demand that students deserve better. So as I say, I'm keeping it brief, and without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to our VP MC, Hilary, who's going to take us through this rally. So Hilary, let's get into it.
Hiya, I always love coming after Larissa because Larissa gives the best rally speeches, and I've really got those 3Ds in my head: demarketization, democratization, and decolonization. And I think that's apt now more than ever in really fighting so students get better, because they do deserve better. And like Larissa, I'm going to keep my comments, my voice brief, because we've got such an amazing lineup of speakers here at the rally today. And I get to introduce our first amazing speaker, the president of Queen's University Belfast, SU, Grian Nijabin, who is just an amazing officer, amazing activist, who's going to start off this event. So over to you, Grian.
Hey, thank you, Hilary. So it's Mr. Grian Nijabin, agus is Mr. Uachtaran, Aintas na Maclean, ag Oscail na Banrina and Mel First. So my name is Grian. I am the president of Queen's University Belfast Students' Union. My pronouns are she, her. And no, here in the north, we are really, really dealing with an incompetent executive. They have no idea what they're doing about whenever it comes to students. They haven't a notion what they're doing, and it's to be an officer at this moment in time, to be representing students, is hard enough. I can't even begin to understand what it's like to be a student this year. It is an absolute farce, the way that our executive have treated our students. We are the only place in the UK that still does not have a plan to get students home for Christmas. And the end of our term is next Friday, and we still have no idea how we're going to get those students home for Christmas and how we're going to get them home safely to make sure that their families and their communities are safe. That's not good enough. what we were dealing with at Queen's at the start of this year is we had our university went with a blended learning approach. So there was some degree of face-to-face teaching. And then it wasn't until halfway through the semester that the executive came out and made a decision to move all learning online. This was because the executive has no idea what they're doing when it comes to universities or students, and they put our issues on the long finger, despite us I know my officer team and the people I work with in our students' union, we have been in our roles since the 1st of July, and since that 1st of July, we have had a run just to keep standing, and we're only just out of our education ourselves, or we're in the middle of our education, and we represent 25,000 people, and we know for a fact that we are the only representatives that those people have at the minute in the public sphere. We are the only the student movement is the only representation that those people have, because there's no one else talking about the lack of communication to students, the lack of government guidance to students, and there's no one talking. We're the only ones talking about these structural issues that need dealt with, and that so many of the issues that we're dealing with that have blown up in our faces at this moment in time are because of government and executive incompetence over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years to deal with the issues the students are facing here in the north. One of the things that we're dealing with is we have an area in Belfast that we work really closely with, and this is an area called the Holy Lands. I'm on it right now. It's quite famous in the north. And it's quite famous because it has landlords that monopolize the area. If you get sick in this area, you're bound to stay sick for the duration of your time at university until you move out. The standard of living here is substandard, and students are crammed in here in the HMOs. This is one of the most highly condensed HMO areas in the entirety of the north of Ireland, and there's no way there really for landlords to be held to account here. There's no sort of competency or no way to measure their competency as landlords, and they have and those same landlords have a hold on the people that we elect to that assembly who are making decisions. And what we have seen is that students in this semester during this academic year are still dealing with the hangovers of the first lockdown, of the first wave of COVID-19. And what that means is that we have students that are coming into this year in thousands of pounds in rent arrears, living in fear of being taken to court because they were given court threats in April, May, and the month that comes after May, I forget it. But during the course of the summer, the people were getting threats of court action because they could not afford to pay their rents. These landlords were refusing to let people out of their tenancies whenever they very much had the power to do so. But there was a lack of political will to make these landlords, to force the hands of these landlords to let these students out of their tenancy agreements. And the trend that happens here in the north is that people, or particularly in Belfast, is that for the academic year ahead, you're very likely to have your deposit paid for the house that you're going to be living in the next academic year. You have done your viewings and you have paid your deposit come March. So people paid their deposits and were secured into tenancy agreements for this semester before a lot of students, before the first wave of COVID actually even came. And there has been, even some of the examples that we have seen of landlords at the minute is that, or over the past number of months, is that landlords are asking for 6 months worth of bank statements to prove that you have no money. You're handing over, you're being asked to hand over personal information that person has no right to, just so they might let you out of your contract. It is an absolute farce. And what we need to see is a radical plan for student renters, because we're not seeing it at the minute. Anytime we raise the issue of student renters, we get passed around department to department, because no one wants to take responsibility for student issues. And that is part and parcel of the issue of marketisation, because we fall under the Department for the Economy. During a pandemic, whenever they're trying to make businesses thrive, but not necessarily helping workers survive, businesses are at the forefront, but So whenever universities and students come under that, we're never going to get a look in. We're never going to get a look in the north, because you have, as it says time and time again, the executive have no understanding of how to deal with students, the specific issues dealing with students, and as well, whenever student representatives ask to get into the room, they're told, no, sorry, no room for you at the end. It's an absolute farce. Another thing that we're really looking at is, and no, part of the Students Deserve Better campaign is the whole cohort of the different identities of students and how they're all affected. So while I talk about students in the private rented sector, we also have students and their partners who are being denied benefits because of the fact that they're students. And we have students that are losing their homes. We have students who, no, and the thing is whenever you are working and studying online, your living conditions are your learning conditions. And we all know that the living conditions of students have never necessarily been up to standard. So we need a radical plan for student financial support. We need a radical plan for student renters. We need to ban evictions, and we need to let students get out of their tenancy agreements early. We need to suspend rental contracts so that people may, whenever their universities tell them, right, pack it in, go home, we're moving online, but they may have to return at another point in the semester. No, the uncertainty in, like, before you're even, like, in your own private life is damaging enough. And then we have, before this, we had a crisis in student mental health. I know I'm preaching to the converted here. We did have a crisis in student mental health before COVID hit, and that was not being looked at. But now what we're seeing is that crisis has only exacerbated. And I get into work every day, and I am nearly waiting, and I am waiting for the next crisis. And I don't normally have to wait long, normally about 5 minutes, and there's no new crisis. But but the crisis we have to deal with, like in work, are minute to the personal crises that people are finding themselves in whenever they just don't feel safe with themselves. And it breaks my heart that we have to just that we're watching this happen, and that our executive fails to recognise the urgency of student mental health and the issues that students are facing at the minute. And this is just scratching the surface of how a marketised system of higher education is not sustainable. I know in my university, I often hear in committee meetings that they're pushing and they're working with the executive to look at a sustainable funding model for higher education. So long as it includes operating within the system that currently exists, it is not sustainable. In no way, shape, nor form is that sustainable. We need to invest. We need to invest in higher education as it is a public good. We need to make sure, we're seeing the burden that being unemployed is having on so many of our students. Why do students even have to work while they are in full-time education? Why was that even a thing that had to happen in the first place? And it is, so we need to make sure that students are coming into university and they're able to fully dedicate themselves to their studies, leave university without any financial burden because they have decided to go through that route of education. We need to, sorry, my mouth's getting dry. But we need to eradicate all barriers to higher education. Be that, one of the massive things that's here in the north is the fact that higher education is primarily centralized to one city that is not that city I love. So I love Belfast as much as anybody else, but higher education is centralized to one city that is not fit for purpose for students. It isn't. So, and it is what it is. If I were to come down to it, and I know I've been rambling on, but if I were really to come down to it, is that the executive here has no understanding of students, how higher education needs to work, how it needs to be funded. They fully benefit and create a skilled workforce. They actually know this idea of community wealth building and keeping everything within our communities and keeping that skilled workforce and things like that. Because I even know in myself, the people that I have seen that won't get home for Christmas because they've already moved away, because they didn't have access to stuff here. There is a massive problem with higher education here. COVID has only just revealed everything that is wrong with the higher education here, and COVID has revealed the negligence with which our executive, the NI executive, has treated students for the past number of decades. It is inexcusable. They will not let students round the table. They will put student issues on the long finger, and then whenever they make the decision, they're like, right, that's grand, deal with it. Students absolutely deserve so much better than this. So much better. I know that the issues I've touched on, they don't even begin to even explain the work that we do in our office day in and day out. But they don't begin to explain the hardship that our executive and our universities have put our students through. It is completely unacceptable. And I hope that in some way, shape or form, the students keep getting organised like we've seen in other parts of the UK. Like we've seen in other parts of the UK, it is so important the students keep organising, get involved in your students' unions, channel your frustration and channel your anger to something, because you deserve so much better than how you're being treated and what you're getting at this moment in time. Gura Mila Mayagov, I'm now going to draw myself to a close because I love to ramble on. Gura Mayagov.
Thank you so much. I was transfixing my screen. I could not stop listening. That was such an amazing and inspiring speech. And I think what really made me so excited by it is that at the forefront, at the center of it all, students have been there fighting. You as a student representative have been there fighting, unrelenting, so students get justice, so that the government and universities can see that students deserve better. So thank you so much. That was an amazing speech. And I guarantee you all, we've got so many more amazing speakers just like Grian, and it's going to be so good. So now I want to introduce you to our next speakers, who are Joy O'Gorman and Myri McLellan from Unison and RCM respectively, who are also going to give us a great rallying cry and rally speech. So the floor is yours. Please take the floor. Take it.
Oh, hi. I think we're having a little bit of an issue, technical issue there with sound. I'm hoping everybody can hear me okay. Hopefully Joy can sort that out just while I kind of jump in and do my bit. So my name's Vali, my pronouns are she, her. I'm a rep for Scotland on the SMF, which is the Royal College of Midwives Student Midwife Forum, and I'm co-vice chair of the SMF. To give a bit of background, the SMF is comprised of midwifery students from all 4 countries of the UK, and we meet at least 4 times a year to feed back to the RCM and discuss the issues facing student midwives. Students can report directly to their rep, who might be a different uni from them, but they'll be based somewhere in their geographical area. And it's really important that midwifery students are feeding back to their reps about their concerns or any issues that they're facing. The RCM can only work to support students if they know what's going on for them, and the SMF reps are one of the ways to ensure that your student midwife voice is heard. So if you are a midwifery student out there and you're listening to this and you're unsure who your rep is, you can find that on the RCM website, on the SMF page, and contact details can also be found there. We're actually currently holding an election at the moment, as some of us have just recently qualified. So some of the reps will be changing soon, but voting is open. So if there are midwifery students out there, I really urge you to go on and vote for the reps in your area. So firstly, I'd just like to share the main concerns that are being fed back to us at the SMF with a little bit of the context for these concerns. So the move back at the start of the pandemic to offer paid placements was something that was welcomed by most students. partly because it reduced the financial burden that many students face while completing the midwifery degree, and because being employees entitled students to death in service cover, which means that if they were to die as a result of their work in the NHS, for example from coronavirus, then their families would have some protection. Those that were in first year at the time of the extended paid placements are now facing a lot of anxiety as they've returned to practice as second years, but with very little experience of being on placement. So feeling that clinically they're still first years. And of course, staff have been made aware that these students have not had the usual amount of experience for a second year, but it's still very challenging for students. It's a particularly stressful aspect of the course that you're being constantly assessed, that everything you're doing is being watched, and it feels like you can't ever have an off day or an off moment. And this feeling is being made so much worse for students who now feel that they're further back than they would have been and to have to work even harder to catch up. And to be dealing with all of that while also feeling the strain that comes with placements in short-staffed services and the need to often have paid employment on top of doing full-time placement hours, because even for those of us who are lucky enough to be in countries that still give a bursary for healthcare students, the bursary is nowhere near enough to live on, especially if you're a mature student or someone with families. And to be honest, just for any student, with what we're talking about in terms of rent and everything like that, it's expensive, and we can't live on the bursaries that are currently offered. So many students report that although they may not technically be counted on ward area numbers in terms of on the off duties, the reality of staffing shortages in the NHS mean that they are not in fact supernumerary, that often in a lot of areas they are playing a key role in making sure that care is delivered safely in some areas. The RCM recently conducted a survey which highlighted that a very significant number of midwives, in fact I think it was about 86%, felt that staffing levels were unsafe in the areas that they work. And this finding for me begs the question of how students can possibly be completely supernumerary during a staffing crisis like that, and therefore why are students not being financially compensated for the role that they're playing within the NHS. And this is further compounded in England particularly, where students no longer receive a bursary and have to pay tuition fees. So worse than not being paid for work that they're doing, students in England are actually paying for the privilege of being there. So back in March of this year, just before the first lockdown, Jo Williams, who's SMF rep for England North, and she is the other co-vice chair, she attended an all-party parliamentary group for students meeting about the issues of student finance, feeding back the views of students in England and the financial challenges that they face. And throughout the pandemic, the SMF have been meeting more regularly than we usually would, and have been feeding concerns directly to the RCM. The RCM also have an Anything Students group that's been meeting regularly on a fortnightly basis to discuss student welfare issues. And the RCM has done a lot of work with your feedback, both feedback that's come through the SMF and also information gathered from the student surveys they've conducted back in 2019 and also in July of this year. So the RCM have used this feedback to lobby the government, including work that's been undertaken in collaboration with the RCN, Unison and NUS. So more details about how the RCM has been advocating for its student members, along with loads of really useful information about the various issues that the pandemic has created for midwifery students, is going to be made available on the RCM website in the form of a Q&A document. And I believe that's going to be uploaded soon. So after meeting with the SMF, the RCM has sought clarification on whether students are covered by the Coronavirus Life Assurance Scheme. And the simple answer is that for students in Wales and Scotland, they are, although for students in England and Northern Ireland, the wording suggests that it's on a very discretionary basis, which the RCM are aware is not good enough. And they are seeking clearer wording that guarantees cover for students. In terms of being paid to be on placement, it's felt by the RCM that being employees of the NHS Trust or board carries downsides. For example, not being considered supernumerary, which can have a negative impact on learning opportunities. So it's therefore their aim to continue to lobby for tuition fees to be abolished and for the reinstatement of bursaries or creation of grants that meet students' actual needs. And this work is ongoing. And there are plans to include the SMF in this lobbying work in the new year. And the RCM can only advocate for their student members if they know what things look like on the ground for students. So again, I can't stress highly enough the importance of contacting your SMF rep and telling them what's happening for you. That is what we're there for. We can't necessarily give a solution, but what we can do is ensure that your voice is heard and ensure that the RCM is working on behalf of their student members. And finally, I just want to make it clear that students are not selfishly complaining about these issues. Students are acutely aware of the pressure on midwives, managers, services, and the NHS as a whole. They understand the seriousness of this pandemic and that both university and placement arrangements have had to change to accommodate the ever-changing nature of the situation that we're in. Students absolutely understand that we need to be flexible and to work with universities and the NHS, and they're very happy to pitch in and help. Students do not want to be removed from placement, they want to be there. However, the stress and anxiety that is facing student midwives at the moment is extremely high, and the financial pressures are significant. And it's unacceptable and frankly exploitative for the government to expect students to pick up the slack, working for free, with many of them incurring debts of almost £70,000 in the process. It's not on, and students deserve better. And that's what the SMF has to say about that. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. That, like, to any students, that I've seen lots of students putting comments in the chat saying I'm also working as well, and I know that, you know, it's going to be so important for you to reach out to Myri and actually get involved with the union action, and that's where the collective power really lies. And so thank you so much, Myri. I think we've got Joy on the line as well. So Joy, please do jump in, and hopefully we can hear you. I'm touching wood, all of the stuff. Yes.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Yay, thank goodness. Sorry about those technical issues, the good old phone. So yes, my name's Joy. I'm the National Student Nurse Lead for Unison, which I would like to echo a lot of the words that Myri said. Unison have worked very closely with RCN and other student unions over the past year as all of this unfolded. As nursing students, we definitely identify with a lot of the stories that we've been hearing so far from your amazing representatives. It's been a really tough year. One of the pluses, I'd say, is during the very early stages when considerations were being bandied around about whether to use us during the pandemic and lockdown one as extra manpower, we managed to ensure that our voice was round the table. And I can't emphasize enough that we really need to ensure that the student voice continues to be around the table. So we knew whilst the negotiations were happening with the 4 CNOs and the 4 nations, that we were consulted and our feedback counted and mattered, and our voice was very much there. And we had a say in how those negotiations and how policy literally was unfolding and being developed with the student voice in there. So more power to everyone who's here tonight, in that we are all speaking collectively together and we are stronger together, and we need to maintain that force. It's all too easy, I think, for the government in the minute where all these vaccine rollouts and other priorities, for the ball to slip a bit, and we need to keep ensuring that we are there very much and our voice is included in the decision-making process, and that we're not done too. So one of the things that was crucial that Myri's emphasised is that we are campaigning for abolition of tuition fees. We feel it's immoral for the same reasons that Myri is saying. We're asking for a living grant so that students can work full-time on placement, because it is a job, it's not just a learning experience, and meet academic requirements, and then not kill ourselves trying to fund a part-time work to pay the mortgage or the bills. It's not feasible, it's not sustainable, and students are coming out burnt out, and you're going in as a newly qualified nurse or midwife or dietitian or radiographer, exhausted from your degree and really not fit for purpose. And that is no way to start the new workforce for the NHS. The NHS itself is already exhausted. So the government really does need to prioritise and know that by investing in us, we give back 100% throughout our careers as healthcare students, as many students in other fields of practice will too. So we really need them to listen to our voice, to ensure that our voice is not going to go away, that we are going to demand respect, and that students do deserve better. And I'd just like to thank Unison, the 4 nations, the 4 CNOs, the government, Earlier in the year, we worked brilliantly together. Let's continue to do that, and let's address some of these really horrendous issues we're hearing tonight. We all know how housing impacts health. We all know how mental health impacts performance. Let's not let a crisis unfold before our very eyes when we know it's happening. So thank you very much for having us here. That's short and sweet. Sorry about the technical issues, and I'll pass you on to the next person.
No, fine. It's fine. And thank you so much for being with us here today. This is just part and parcel of this socially distant, keeping safe life. So we totally get the tech issues. And thank you so much for speaking. I personally resonate with everything that you and Myri have been saying, because my mum's a nurse. And so this is really, really close to home for me. So thank you so, so much. And I hope that everybody here, if anybody has just joined us, I'm Hilary. I'm the Vice President Higher Education at NUS. My pronouns are she, her, and it's great to have you all here. We've heard from the President of Queen's University Belfast, SU. We've heard from Joy O'Gorman and Myri McLellan. And now I have the privilege of introducing our next speaker, Diane Abbots, the MP for Hackney North and Stoke Newington, who's going to give us such a burst of energy. And Diane, we're just so honored to have you here. So please take the floor and fill us with your energy. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased to speak at this rally, because I do believe that students deserve better. And I think that some of the things that have happened really quite unfair. I think it's been unfair the way that students were encouraged to go back to university, even though there were issues about safety with coronavirus, were told that they could have the regular student experience, and actually found themselves exposed to coronavirus, and in some cases actually locked down in their university. And I feel the reason that students were encouraged to go back to university was because the universities wanted the money for students paying for their accommodation. They wanted the student fees. And it's really all to do with the marketization of higher education, whereby higher education is a commodity. And what happens is the pounds, shillings, and pence. And I think the marketization of higher education has meant that students don't get treated as fairly as they should be in the middle of a pandemic. And I think that a lot of universities have a lot to answer for in the way they haven't made sure that students were safe. I mean, that's one thing I would like to say about how and why students deserve better.
That is incredible, Diane. And you've been on the front lines fighting for students, fighting for all of us, making sure that, you know, the government really know how much we need them to do better and to keep students safe. And so it's amazing that you've really highlighted the deep issues of marketization. And actually, like Larissa said in her opening comments, that the only way forward is demarketization, decolonization, and democratization of education. So I want to ask you, what is it that you are currently calling for on behalf of students? So Students Deserve Better is our campaign manifesto. You've seen all of our asks. What are the things that you're really seeing that is close to your heart, that you're campaigning for, and what can we do collectively to support you, to support those that are allies in Parliament, and then actually push for that change to happen and happen now? Diane, are you able to hear us? I think this is just part and parcel of this digital world, just technical difficulties. But I think it really goes to show that, you know, from everything we've heard today, especially with what Diane has said, I think it's really, really important that we understand that the issues that we're seeing students face today is not isolated to coronavirus. If anything, is exacerbated by coronavirus and the lack of government support in what we're doing. And I think, you know, everyone has testified to how much students have been put on the line to fend for themselves when they really deserve better. And we've really seen that through all of the experiences that we've heard time and time again on social media and real life. I'm not sure if you can hear me now, Diane. Can you hear me?
So I didn't hear you straight away, but I can hear you now.
Perfect.
I think the point you're making is a good one. The point about coronavirus is it has shed more light on unfairness and inequality, and I think that's as true of students as anybody else.
I definitely agree with you, and I think if anything, now is the time where like enough just has to be enough. This government have had so many opportunities to do the right thing, and I think right now it's a midst of a pandemic. They cannot avoid the fact that people are suffering, and so the question I was asking earlier is, what can we do as a collective movement to support you and our allies in Parliament to really push for this change? What can we do to really galvanize that change and make sure that, you know, the change that we see is not only a response to COVID and the current pandemic, but actually it's a whole-scale transformative change that looks to eradicate the marketization of higher education, that looks to democratize education and looks to decolonize education. What are your tips? What is the advice you would give to all of the amazing people here?
Well, I think that students are important partners in education. They are as important as government and tutors, that you are part of the education community. And I think you should use organisations like NUS to make the argument for a better curriculum that better reflects the society. I think it's about supporting those of you that are making that case, but also NUS as an organisation making that case. Because, you know, education and what we learn, whether it's at school or college or uni, is so important. And that's the way we as a society will move forward. So making the case for a better curriculum is very important.
No, and I definitely agree. And if there is if anything is true now more than ever, knowledge is power, and education is such a foundation to our society that the moment we let students in education down, we are letting down the next generation. We are letting down the survival of a public good, a right that everyone should have access to be able to thrive as people in those spaces. And I think right now the energy and what we're hearing from students is that it's exactly that. They are not feeling like they are being enabled to thrive as people, and I think you're a real testament to how much people are needing to be seen and how much you are doing so much to be here with us today, seeing and hearing people. And so if there was any sort of last words you want to leave us with to energize us into action, what would you say to energize us and to get students feeling the hope that they so desperately need to really fight back against the injustices that they are feeling and seeing and experiencing today? I'd love to hear your energizing words.
Well, I think it's really important to be the change that you want to see. None of us can sit back and think that change can come without our participation. And I think it's really important to support each other, whether it's supporting people through the NUS or just supporting people in your own college or university who are speaking up on issues. If we as people of colour, but students generally, don't support each other in practical ways, we're not going to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the mutual aid groups that we see students set up, the way that, students have abided by the rules, but also made sure that they showed up and showed out for their local communities, and actually, were able to really give back in ways that we know students have been doing time and time again. I think that's been the most powerful thing, making sure that, like, above all, we are valuing community, and we are feeling like we are parts of communities that we can participate in and give back with. And so I think those are amazingly energizing words. And again, we can't thank you enough for speaking here and fighting, on the front line for students. So thank you so much, Diane. And I'm sure everybody here is energized by your words. And again, it's been an absolute pleasure. And with that, we're going to move on to our next speaker, who is an amazing person. I personally get very fangirly, as much as when I speak to an incredible MP as Diane, as when I get to introduce and hear a fellow officer, a fellow student movement activist speak. So I'm really, really proud to be introducing Kay Dennis. They are the VP Welfare of the University of South Wales Students' Union. Blow us away. I am so ready to hear what you have to say. I'm feeling energized, and I'm sure everybody is too. So please, the floor is yours.
Oh, that is fantastic. Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm Kay Dennis. I'm the VP Welfare Officer with the University of South Wales Student Union. I'm telling a little bit of a different story today in the hopes of inspiring you to speak up and to use your student unions to lobby and to make change, but also to show what can really be achieved when a university works with its students as partners. So right now, ensuring that the student voice is being heard has never been more important. Student voice is vital in making decisions that affect students and their learning. Students are your investors, they're your stakeholders, and their input has to be considered. And so we have made sure to fight for that this year. At the University of South Wales Student Union, we've asked to attend more meetings than we've ever been involved with before. We've made sure that students are at the forefront of any decisions that are being made, right from the announcement back in March of the lockdown, and now as we're preparing to enter the new year. We achieved refunds for students in halls before it became a national issue. We made sure that our international students could access emergency funding at a time when they really needed it. And we secured a comprehensive IT loan for students to complete their studies remotely. So dongles, Macs and laptops, and that continues on into this year. We secured a no detriment approach to ensure that our students got a fair deal regarding their studies. And we made sure that the document was written and rewritten so that it could cover all situations and to get it right the first time. Ensuring that a pandemic practice was embedded in our student charter so that students could know what was expected of them at uni, as well as what they could expect from us in a clear and digestible way, was so important, and we made it happen. We've made sure that students' welfare has been at the heart of any activity throughout the year. Weekly check-in calls with students who were in halls over the summer were conducted. We managed to host our elections, where I was brought in the beginning of the year, and we conducted our Student Choice Awards and continued our campaign work throughout the lockdown. And in September, we streamed a fully online Freshers for the first time, with some amazing interactions with some amazing students who truly needed us. We've continued this programme into the new year, and we're making sure we've got a rich range of events on offer, and that we are strongly prioritising the student voice. We're working closely with our student voice reps, our course reps and our council members. We're shining a spotlight on students' works with photography competitions, starting a book club to encourage them to interact with more diverse and inclusive reading material, and we're featuring alumni profiles, which we did during our Black History Month campaign in October. Since then, we've run a successful mental health campaign asking students not only to look after your mate, but also to check in with themselves. And we're rounding off the year with a Means to Me campaign where we can spread some gratitude for those who've helped us throughout the year. We've worked really closely with other institutions across Wales to develop and support each other with suggestions and best practice. We're sharing resources, collaborating on campaigns, and ensuring that where we interlink, that we're making the most of those connections. We're making sure that we're working together and uniting at such a difficult time. And in spite of everything, we've continued to provide that friendly face that students need. In spite of everything, we've pushed and fought to make sure that students are at the heart of any provisions that are provided. And for us, that's been successful. For other institutions, that's not the case, as you've heard today. Students are being denied their basic rights because universities believe their education to be a business strategy. They believe that taking money from students to keep them in their halls and trap them in contracts and fences and monitor their every move is an effective business plan. The universities that put students in unacceptable circumstances and exploit them for cold, hard cash need to take a good, hard look at themselves. Studying when there wasn't a pandemic was hard. Trying to exist in a world where racism is embedded in your very institution, transphobia is rife throughout the media, and student mental health is already at breaking point was hard. Add on a pandemic to this, and you can see why students are fighting back. We are fighting back because we are tired, we are exhausted. We have been the last thought for universities and the last thought for UK government. The institutions that are supposed to safeguard us and ensure our well-being are ignoring that, and we are tired and we have had enough. We deserve better. In Wales, the universities received a rescue package of about £10 million, with 50k going to each SU. For us at USW, this was barely enough to keep us from collapsing. We're in a dire financial situation and we are still working tirelessly to support our students as best as we can. But that support is not enough. We need continued support from governments to ensure that student unions can continue to do the work that needs to be done in representing students in their best interests. We need governments to recognise the invaluable work that student unions are doing, as well as the work that grassroots activists are organising. We need governments to do better. We are the voices of the future and we deserve better. Thank you.
I feel like I'm both the audience and the host. I forget myself. Those were incredible words, and I can't emphasize enough how impactful students have been in this time. And Kay, you gave such an amazing sort of timeline of what you've been doing as part of your student union and as a student. And so I'm so thankful that you came and you told us all about it today. And I hope that anybody that might be new to the student movement that haven't heard how powerful and crazy, like unrelentless students are in fighting for what they know they deserve. This is it. Like this is like it. And like there are how many student unions across the country? This is happening all over the place. And students need to be seen, students need to be recognized, and students fundamentally deserve better. So thank you so much, Kay. You are amazing, and carry on fighting the good fight. You know we're here by your side. And with that, we are going to be introducing our next speaker. I feel like I'm a bit on the TV show, so I feel like if you've just joined, if you have joined late, it's fine. It's the evening. I hope you're eating dinner, drinking tea, whatever you need to do to get to keep alert and watch these amazing speeches and really capture the energy that is coming through. I'm Hilary. I'm the Vice President Higher Education at the National Union of Students. This is our Students Deserve Better campaign rally, and you have heard from such amazing speakers so far. And we've got another one coming up right now. And so I am so proud to introduce Professor Gargi Bhattacharya, who is a professor of sociology at UEL and the chair of UCU. Professor, we are just so happy and honoured to have you here, and thank you so much for speaking. Please, the floor is yours. You have so many energizing words, I'm sure.
Well, let's see. Thanks so much for inviting me. I was saying on Twitter how just swelled up with pride I felt to be invited to this event today. I probably speak at too many events, but this is such a special event. And I think everyone in the student movement, you really need to congratulate yourself. The shift you've made in the public debate about the marketisation of the sector, the poor impact of COVID arrangements across universities, to raise just the issue of rent and the fact that you could rent strike. That's just giving hope and confidence and energy to so many people beyond higher education. And it had to come, didn't it? You know, the young are always probably at the beginning of those things, but everyone else is getting on board. And so this feels like a really exciting moment. People probably know that I'm facing compulsory redundancy very shortly, unless we win something. because my university, University of East London, has used the COVID crisis really to say, let's change the nature of our business. And through that has shed quite a lot of staff. It's not talking to students about what they want to do, despite all of this talk about looking after students. And I think, along with the rest of the sector, is in danger of just forgetting what education is for. As Diane Abbott was saying, and other speakers have said, education is really for those who participate in it to be your best selves. Yes, we want to work. Yes, we want to be accommodating to whatever new skills are needed, but we have to want to do it. You can't make someone do that. All of that sense that students have a journey of self-realization through education, that's marketisation cuts all of that out. It's what will get us some cash in here. If people are a bit reluctant to pay, how can we make them pay earlier so they're tied in? If we need their money, lock them in the building. That's been transformative for the British public to see literally people imprisoned, as other speakers have said, tricked into coming, or not tricked, coerced into coming. You know, I know in some places people couldn't register and enroll unless they kept up those rental agreements. And then it's clearly nothing to do with their education. I think that moment of kind of like the emperor's new clothes coming off has shown the whole country what has happened to certainly the university system under these last years of marketisation. And I think that has to be an opportunity for all of us to say, well, does this country really want a higher education system? As other speakers have said, to train people to have those skills and qualifications that are absolutely needed now. You know, what a sham to be exploiting health students while also saying, oh, but you're a cash cow for us, pay us your rent. All of that, I think, opens up what is possible next. That's also a battle for staff. UEL is not the only place that's trying to shed academic staff. We know up and down the country that is happening. We know some of that is a kind of antagonism to trade unionism. Some of it's an antagonism to some ways of working and operating. Some of it's just to kind of bully the workforce, because if you sack a few of us, they think that everyone else will lie down and take everything. All of that becomes much less possible when students are mobilising, showing solidarity with staff, when staff are also supporting student actions. So I really think that despite all the bad times we're in, this could be the turning point for British universities. It's a kind of make or break moment. And for that reason alone, I kind of feel like, oh, tell my grandchildren that I got to be here today. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Gargi. I think it's especially important for me to say this here, that, like, you know, the solidarity we have as students extends to our lecturers, extends to staff members, because your working conditions, your working rights are our learning conditions and our rights to be able to have an education. And so we are completely behind you, and nobody should be, you know, left out in the lurch and left to suffer, especially in the pandemic, especially when we're seeing education is more important now more than ever. Well, it's always been important, but you know, people being able to get a fair, free, liberated, fully funded education is imperative. And if we continue to see our government duck and dive and try and avoid it, we're going to see students and staff suffer. And so that collective solidarity is imperative. So thank you so much. And I really, really appreciate your honesty, your candidness, and how much you've championed the student movement. We all feel it, and we will continue to back you and champion you all the way. And so with that energizing speech, I do want to remind everybody that if you're new here, if this is the first time you've encountered NUS, or you've been following us silently, or you just want to know how you can get involved tangibly, how can you get involved in this campaign and put the pressure on, we have a few links. In my favorite like TV host style, they should be coming in the bar beneath. Or if you're watching on social media, they should be in the comments. Please do join our Students Deserve Better collective. Please do get involved with our actions. Please join us in putting pressure on universities and the governments, that all of the governments that we are lobbying to bring the change that you need for them to see that students deserve better. And you know, that collective spirit still burns strong. And I know that all of you here are going to continue the good fight. And so whilst you're all joining the collective, signing petitions, doing whatever you need to do to really engage, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. I am literally floored by the caliber and the amazingness of the speakers we have today. And I'm so pleased to be welcoming Dr. Keir Milburn, who's the author of Generation Left and a lecturer in political economy and organization at the University of Leicester. Thank you so much for being here. I keep saying the floor is yours. I need to find a synonym, but the virtual floor is yours. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. And I just want to, I want to emphasize what Gargi just said, really. My starting point is this. I think you lot are involved in something important. And when I say you lot, I mean the people watching this rally, the people speaking at this rally. And I think it might turn out that you're involved in something very, very important, because I think what's been emerging over the last few months is the beginning of a renewed student movement. A student movement that's been doing some really accelerated collective learning about the institutions that we're all involved in. You know, the contemporary university, what people have been calling the marketized university. And I'd want to push that even further and say what we are facing, the institution we're involved with, is the financialized university. I'll come to that a bit later. I want to say that there's been a learning process about what is this institution, how does it relate to us, and how do we exercise a bit of power within that institution. That's been going on for a while, I think. And in fact, I want to take you back 10 years. I want to take you back to the student movement of 2010 to illustrate how this story has unrolled over the last decade. So 10 years ago, there was a student movement which was incredibly dynamic, incredibly militant, in fact. It sprang up because student fees were tripled. They tripled up to £9,000 fees. Also, there was the abolition of something called the Education Maintenance Allowance, which was a small allowance that allowed students who were 16 to 18 to go to finish their A-levels, etc. And it was an incredibly dynamic movement. Very large protests, weekly protests sometimes, actually, for a while. Lots of students went in, lots of universities under occupation. Famously, the Conservative Party HQ got stormed at Millbank Tower. I can look back at that movement now after a decade, and you can see what an incredibly important moment that was, not just for higher education, but for the wider country. And in fact, I think that sparks in the UK what I've called Generation Left. This quite a dramatic turn to the left by young people. Unfortunately, there's also been a bit of a turn to the right amongst many older people to offset that. And in fact, I think without that student movement of 2010, perhaps the whole Corbyn moment would have looked very, very, very different, I think. So these moments, the moments that I think is emerging at this time now, I think they can have long-lasting and widespread effects. The point is this, though. The 2010 student movement was supposed to be the last time that ever happened, right? That's the point. That's why you introduced £9,000 fees. You introduced £9,000 fees to change the way students think about their education, to try to construct students as consumers, as customers in a marketized university. And if you're a consumer, if you're a customer, you could have interest in conflict with the staff who work there, the students, the lecturers and the professional services staff, etc. The one point where I realized that it wasn't playing out the way that they planned it was in 2018, actually. I'm giving you a bit of a history lesson now. In 2018, a UCU, the Lecturer and Professional Services Union, we went on strike around pensions. And to everybody's surprise, that strike turned out to be incredibly dynamic and very, 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 very militant and really energized a strike. It really surprised people to some degree. And the absolute, well, I think one of the things that was going on there was that a lot of the younger staff, the more precarious staff at universities, they'd been involved in the student movement of 2010, and they carried those lessons on. And they were driving some of us older heads in UCU on, I think. But what I would say is the best thing about the 2018 student movement was the incredible support that the 2018 strikes, I mean to say, the UCU strike was the incredible support we got from the students. And in fact, many students occupied their universities. At the University of Leicester, we had students occupied the administration building, the first occupation at the University of Leicester since 1977, we were told, which was just, I cannot emphasize just how heartening that sort of solidarity between students and staff is. And then we have this year, the most strange of year, the pandemic. And I think when the pandemic hit and universities were wondering what to do about that, I think there was a tension. There was a potential for real tension between the demands of students and the demands of staff, faculty, and professional services. Because I can tell you this, the staff at universities were actually quite shocked that we were being given little choice about whether we did face-to-face teaching or went to work in libraries, etc., where in conditions where we were at some sort of risk. We were at risk of getting infection ourselves and infecting our loved ones, etc. We were sort of being forced to do this thing. It came as a surprise to us. And at the same time, I think many students were wondering why they'd been advised to go back to universities, to go to campuses, to take up accommodation at halls or another rented accommodation. Why were they being told to do that when so little teaching was actually face-to-face? These things could have been in tension, I think. But what's happened as things have gone on and as the semester's gone on is I think we both realized, staff and students have realized, that the problem that we might be facing from opposite sides have been caused by the same thing, which is the structure of the contemporary higher education. And I think the rent strikes that have happened in Manchester successfully have been fantastic in recognizing the important role that student rents play in the business models of universities. Universities aren't actually businesses, but they are run as though they are these days. And obviously, we think that part of the reason that face-to-face teaching was being insisted on was to make a justification for getting students to come back to campus and and pay their rents, right? To solve the business, to address the business model of universities. Ultimately, it was the government's fault for not giving money to the universities. But I think that helps us explain some of the decisions that have been taken this year. I think we want to push that analysis a little bit further, not just the marketization of universities, the financialization of universities. Because what happens when you get a market in higher education is that many, many universities have taken out loans. They've taken out loans to build shiny buildings that look nice in a brochure. Those loans come with conditions. And I know for a fact that many universities' conditions, they have got loans which say they cannot make an operating loss even for just 1 year, or their interest rates will go up for the rest of the period of the loan, perhaps 10 years or 20 years. So that helps us explain or understand, again, some of these decisions that are being made by senior management at universities. In fact, it's these financial institutions which are setting the conditions upon which our universities are being run. And that may be, you may say, well, that's very interesting, Dr. Milburn, but how is it going to help us? Well, I think it can help us in this way. We need to do our homework. Why don't we go and find out what firms own these loans, right? What other businesses are these companies that own the loans involved in? Have we got some potential allies there? Have we got some potential new points of leverage there? This is an approach to unionism called social unionism or social movement unionism, which has really taken off in the US. And I don't know if people have followed. There's been a series of very, very successful teacher strikes in Chicago, in Wisconsin, and around the US. And they've been following this model of thinking about trying to incorporate the whole body of an institution, students and staff, but also, the other people that we might be in alliance with, because the people who own the loans that universities have taken out, they may well be involved in other things which may help us out. This approach, you can, if you want to think about this approach a little bit more, you could Google bargaining for the common good, or in fact, there's a new book just been released by Alice Martin and Annie Quick called Unions Renewed, who really go through how can we win and fight in a world, in a financialized world. So that's the point I wanted to make, really. I think the marketized university, the financialized university, they're not as strong as they appear. They've got weak points. The rent strikes have spotted one of those weak points. Let's find more of them, and let's use them, staff and students together, to exercise some power over the future direction of universities. I think if we can do that, then we can create a movement which really could have big effects, even beyond higher education. I'll leave that there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Milburn. I think those are very, very apt words. I think more and more we need to, as a movement, look at how we are reviving as a movement, and actually think about how do we re-strategize, how do we really, grab them by the horns and get those tension points and force these institutions, force this system to actually, do what it's supposed to do and serve students. And I think that's really, really important. And I hope all of you students here, I saw in the comments, lots of people are saying we need to do this and that. Like, let's do it. Let's galvanize. Let's get together. Let's make it impossible for them to say no to us. And let's get education to what it fundamentally needs to be: a public good, a right for all, something that is free, accessible, fully funded. I'm never going to stop saying it until I see it. I'm never going to stop saying it. So Dr. Milburn, you said it perfectly. And I think a lot of people are inspired by your words. So thank you so much. Again, if you want to join the collective and get involved in that strategy and put in strategy to action, we've got the link down below, and please do get involved, do keep in touch. We've got people like Dr. Milburn, Professor Gargi, all of our amazing speakers, Diana Abbott, Kay Dennis, all of our amazing speakers are on board with us, and we're all here as a collective. And so it's important right now that we continue to remain together and fight until we get exactly what students need and what they deserve. So thank you so much. I have the privilege of now again introducing another student. That's why I'm fangirling a little bit. I love when I get to introduce students. And the next speaker is a student from Manchester, called Zach Edan, who's a first-year linguistics and French student. Zach, thank you so much for being here. It truly is an honor. And as you can tell, I'm a massive fangirl of students. So I'm just going to let you speak, and I'm just going to be in the background cheering you on. But I know you have so many important things to talk about your recent experiences at Manchester. So please be comfortable in this space. Feel free to speak. And we are all behind you. You are amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Just wanted to clear. I'm not sure if my mic's working. I think so, yeah, cool. Oh, she's come on. All right, cool. Perfect. So my name's Zach. I'm a first-year French and linguistics student at the University of Manchester. Recently moved up from Luton, and you might have heard a little story about what happened to me recently, where I was assaulted by 3 university security guards, solely for the reason that I didn't look like I belonged on campus, or I looked like I was drug dealing. So yeah, I want to obviously give thanks to the NUS for giving me the opportunity to speak, and just I just want to share my story and highlight basically how universities across the country and this university as well only really care about the financial aspects of us as students, and not actually my welfare and safety. So to talk about the incident, I went to the shop, and the university basically has a security process in place where they've got security guards all around the campus, so that way they stop anyone who doesn't belong on campus, or anyone dodgy isn't actually able to get onto campus. So I came onto campus, I showed my ID card, and they were like, yeah, you can go. And I was about 10-15 meters from my door, where 3 security guards basically came up to me and plainly said, like, you're right, mate. You don't look like, you don't look familiar. What are you doing here? And I said, I'm a student. I tried to bring my ID card out, and within 30 seconds, next thing I know, I'm up against the wall being pinned up. They've bruised me all across my chest, and they've used quite excessive force against me. And when they saw that I was an actual student, they were quite shocked. because it's as if they were 100% certain that I wasn't a student here. And from there, it only really gets worse, because straight away, I basically went to my friends and I said, look, this has happened to me. Someone's recorded the incident. What do we do? We went and we found 3 other security guards on the other side of the campus, and I tried to get some help. And they basically just said to me that it was a minor incident. You shouldn't be pulling the race card. This wasn't a racist attack. They were just looking for drug dealers on campus. And I just basically asked what made me look like a drug dealer, not the other white students that were around me as well, who were there. So as soon as they told me that, I didn't really know what to do. So I phoned up 4 different university emergency lines and I said, look, I've been assaulted. I need some help right now. And they basically told me to go away. They said, you need to wait till Monday, file a report, follow the procedure. And yeah, I from then on, I basically actively tried to tried to prevent the other students who had the videos from posting it online. And mainly because I didn't want my face to be plastered everywhere. I didn't want people to really know what was going on. And again and again, I was emailing the uni, this has happened, I need to speak to someone. I need to speak to someone. And they just didn't care. And that's when I said, you know what, post it online. Let the world see what happened. And obviously the video went viral. And within 2 or 3 hours, the uni were ringing my line, trying to get into contact with me. And that's where it becomes really disturbing, because if the video hadn't gone online, I don't think they would have even cared. They wouldn't have batted an eyelid. Yeah, it's a shocking situation going on at the moment, because I've been hearing about other incidents which I'm not actually allowed to discuss just because of certain things going on in the background. But other racist incidents with other students, black students as well, with the same security guards, with other security guards, and you know, making comments such as, well, we haven't seen white drug dealers on campus before, and you know, the security team had been given particular descriptions of people to look out for whilst they're on campus. And you know, I came from a place where weapons, drug dealing, and this sort of thing is a norm. It happens every day. But I escaped all of that to come and study a subject that I love, and for me to be profiled like that 10 meters from my door, it's just completely unacceptable. The Vice Chancellor of the university, Nancy Rothwell, also proceeded to go on national television and lie and pretty much say, yeah, we've spoken to the student, we're helping him through the situation, we are investigating it. First of all, she didn't contact me in any way, shape or form. Second of all, I wasn't aware of any investigation. The first statement I've actually given to the university about what happened was yesterday evening. So yeah, obviously I was completely outraged about that when I saw it on live TV, because I had to listen to this woman speak and say, yeah, you know, we're helping the student, when I'm sitting in my bedroom having no contact from the university, and all they're caring about is their PR and how they look to the media. And obviously, as a speaker before me was saying, they are just real cash cows. All they care about is the financials. And once I applied pressure and said, you know, I'm getting lawyers involved and I'm taking the legal route, the very, very next day she released a public apology saying, you know, confirming that what she said was a lie. And who knows what other things she's lied about in the past. There was protests all across the campus from students from every background, white, black, and the amount of solidarity that the students have shown has been absolutely incredible. The professors and the departments have all reached out to me saying that, you know, they're going to help me and they're going to support me through this. And, you know, I represent the university football team as well, and they've said they're going to support me through the issue, which is really warming, and it is, you know, really helpful. But it's the people at the top who are obviously earning from this financially that just don't give a damn about us as students here at Manchester. And you know, it was only very recently where they decided, you know, we're just going to put up fences in between these students and just basically cage them into the university. Obviously, the fences were taken down by us within 24 hours, but there's just so much going on on this campus, especially and across the university, that the students just don't feel safe anymore. And especially the students who are Black and from ethnic minorities. And yeah, rest assured that us as students, we're not going to stop, and we will continue fighting this against the university until we feel that justice has been served. Not if they feel that justice has been served, but when we feel safe on our campus that we are paying money to be here for, to sit in our rooms 24/7 and study from online, which I could easily do from my room. But yeah, obviously I'm going off topic now. I'm obviously still in negotiation with the university about the incident, and I'm getting a lot of support from a lot of people from different places. So yeah, it's going in the right direction, but we still have a lot to do.
Thank you so much for that, Zach. I think listening to you, especially as a fellow Black person, I was a student only, I want to say last year. I've forgotten how I graduated, and I've flown away into the clouds of student activism trying to dismantle the system. But it wasn't long since I was a student, and what you've experienced, you know, it angers me. And I think what is so upsetting is that this is not new. This isn't the first time that it's ever happened to a Black student. And I think especially in thinking about what's happened over this year, I remember, you know, when George Floyd was murdered, all of these universities were scrambling to put out statements, and lo and behold, their very students are experiencing this very same racism that they claim to condemn. And I think it's important that, you know, first of all, that you've spoken out. I'm a talkative person anyway, but like when like the impact of the student voice, when students speak and are empowered to speak truthfully about their experiences, that's when we truly become empowered to be able to force the change that we need. And I think you're completely right with everything you said. It's only justice when students decide that justice is served. And I think that is fundamental in everything that we do going forward. When we talk about students deserve better, we talk about it in terms of like students deserve better, and students will tell you when we have gotten to the place where we are happy with what we are getting. And so, Zach, thank you so much for coming to speak here. I think you've been incredible, and I think your honesty is an actual testament to the fact that you're not going to rest until you get the justice that you want. And like I've said to so many other speakers, and I say this to you as NUS, but I also say this to you personally as a fellow Black person, you know, we are totally behind you. Like, that is completely unacceptable. And until universities are ready to confront the fact that like these racist incidents ultimately stem from the fact that our education system is embedded in racism and colonial legacy, we're not going to see that long-lasting change. And so we have to push and force these universities to demarketize, decolonize, and democratize if we are really going to see an educational experience that benefits and works for students. And so, Zach, thank you so much. And we are all behind you, the student movement, the many people in the comments, the people that are here are behind you. And when you need us to show up, we're going to show up and we're going to show out. That's it. So thank you so much for speaking here today. And I hope everybody that's listened has really taken the humanity of this, the reality of how it is affecting human lives, that, you know, the government might see us as numbers, but we are people, and you are people, and you deserve better. And so with that, I'm going to move on to our final few speakers to wrap up the night. But I'm just so happy that we have people that are speaking out, that are being strong because of you students being strong. We've won £20 million in hardship funding because of you students demanding better. We have seen so much go forward to make sure students are supported. We've seen mental health services being bolstered by money because students have really spoken out. We've seen students demand that they deserve better by marching when universities decide to fence them in, by demanding rent money back when they have been boxed in accommodations that are not fit for purpose, and they're being charged like hundreds and hundreds of pounds when they've been encouraged to come back to campus for no reason, to sit in their room and study online. It's not acceptable, and we will not stand for it. And so with that same energy, with that same anger, that same vim, I want to introduce Flo, who is our next speaker. Flo is the president at HISA SU, and you are another, fellow activist in the student movement. Again, fangirl Hillary has come back out, because I know that, you've also been on the front line fighting for students, literally, making sure students are eating, making sure students are being able to live and get their basic rights. So please tell us all about what you've done, and really speak to us about the things that we know that you're so obviously passionate about, students.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm Flo, and I'm from the Highlands and Islands Student Association, and updating a little bit on Matt Curley's behalf today as well, as he's sadly unable to be with us. But students have faced a semester quite unlike any other, and there's been many difficulties as the result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And back in March, they were unable to leave their student hall tenancies. They faced additional academic difficulties as the curriculum has moved online. They've been scapegoated for outbreaks. They faced financial pressures as the part-time work they've previously relied on disappeared, and as the incomes of those they depend on were hit as well. Within Scotland, the Student Deserves Better campaign has looked a wee bit different in recognition of the fact that we have a different government pursuing different approaches. So just to give you guys a quick recap of what has happened since March, thanks to NUS Scotland and our brilliant student associations across the country, we had the law change, so students locked in their contracts and student halls can leave, secured additional funding for students facing hardship, secured new funding to help those students facing digital poverty, and also had additional funding secured to support students' mental health. We've had commitments from universities to support students through self-isolation and the pandemic, hosted a student association roundtable with the Minister for FE, HE and Science, and twice with the National Clinical Director, so that we can hear directly what the issues are and that they could hear directly from us what issues students are facing. So we successfully lobbied to change Scottish Government guidance. We ensured that clarity on students' ability to travel home, and ensuring Students' Association can stay open and continue to support students when restrictions were imposed on licensed premises. We secured asymptomatic testing for our students returning home over the Christmas holidays as well, which is fantastic, and getting life insurance for college healthcare students so they can complete their on-the-job training as well, and so much more. But now is really not the time to stop, and there's still so much more that we are wanting to work on. And some of the issues we continue to work on include ensuring that remote learning is the default mode of teaching, except for lab-based and practice-based learning, so students can learn from home or their non-term time addresses if they choose to do so. We also want financial support for Student Association from the Scottish Government, and while we will continue to stand up for students' interests throughout the pandemic, our most proactive campaigning focus, I think, in Scotland going forward is going to get the students the financial support that they really need. COVID-19 has caused financial hardship for Scotland's students as a result of lost or reduced employment for students themselves, but also for those on whom they financially depend on, so parents, carers, or partners. Research by NUS Scotland has found some of the following facts that I feel I really want to share with you today. So students have reported a negative impact on their income from paid employment. In March, 14% of those who were in employment had their hours reduced, and 6% had been made unemployed. By July, 11% of those in employment reported a reduction in their hours, and 14% had been made unemployed. In July, 2/3 of respondents in Scotland said that COVID-19 had some degree of impact upon their income, indicating a major, moderate, or slight impact. The key impact was fewer job opportunities and fewer hours or shifts being available or being furloughed, and receiving lower income. Around 4 in 5 respondents indicate that they were concerned about their ability to manage financially. In both March and July, the proportion of students who reported being extremely concerned increased from 16 to 21% between March and July. This number is probably now even worse, and it's just not acceptable. The income of these students depend on, like parents, carers, and partners, have been negatively impacted too. Students have had to rely on financial assistance from a range of sources. In July, half of our respondents responded having sought financial assistance from a family member. 2 in 5 relied on savings. A quarter used the institution's hardship funds. Around 1/5 used credit cards. But this is really not the time to stop, and we need to make these financial savings here now as well, and kind of support our students financially. And it's really the time for everyone to get involved in this campaign as well, students just deserve better. So in Scotland, we have two major asks from the Scottish Government ahead of this year's Scottish budget. We want to double the amount of FE and HE discretionary funds that were made available in 2021, using new additional funding to support students facing hardship. And secondly, we want invest an additional 5 million in digital inclusion for students in 2021-22 to help tackle digital poverty as well. It is really, really simple to get involved with us as well. And our first campaign asked us to email MSPs and encourage our friends and families to do the same. If you're based in Scotland, you can use a simple tool on the NUS website as well, which or is also linked on the social media sites and allows you to directly email your MSPs and helps to flood politicians' inboxes with this. And NUS also likes a little bit of healthy competition around all of this. So the Scottish Student Associations with the most emails will win an opportunity for free of their officers or staff team to attend a TikTok marketing course, which is quite exciting and a good opportunity as well. But I think the overall message from today from me is to not stop and keep pushing and keep questioning the government and the universities on what they're doing, and refocus on the students and put the students back at the center of education, and to not let universities or the government marketize our universities even further.
Flo, you are incredible. I hear competition, I hear TikTok. Larissa, I'm calling out to you. All of our fellow TikTok enthusiasts, come and join. I think that is amazing. And you're so right. Scotland has seen so many amazing wins. And I think that is a testament to the fact that as students, you continue to be unrelenting. If you actually think about NUS's history, Scotland is basically like our home. It's where NUS started, and it's only grown from there. And I think, you know, there's a testament to which we can say that the more we see you win in Scotland, the more we win as a movement, because the more we see you win, the more we win together. And I think that's incredible. So get involved in the competition. Whoever goes on that TikTok marketing course, please email me. I need you. I need to become TikTok famous, please. But I think, yes, you're all doing amazing stuff. And thank you so much again, Flo. You are incredible. And I'm sure we'll be bumping into each other virtually soon. So thank you so much. And so last but definitely not least, I am going to be introducing a great student activist who's here on behalf of a great student successful movement. I'm going to be introducing Lottie from the University of Manchester Rent Strike. Lottie is part of a group that has made amazing wins over the past few days. If you haven't been on Twitter, if you haven't been on social media, get on it, because you will see the amazing work that they've done as part of this student movement, as part of getting justice for students, as part of making sure that students get better, and letting the university know and hear it loud and clear that students deserve better. So Lottie, the floor is yours. Let us know about all of this amazing work that you've done, the wins you've achieved, and teach us, please. I'm so excited to hear from you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. What a wonderful array of speakers to follow. So yeah, I'm Lot. I'm from the University of Manchester. I'm a first year student, and I'm currently on rent strike. And I was also one of the tower occupiers who was in the Owens Park Tower at Manchester University recently. And I can assure you that none of these were actions that we wanted to take, but they were a consequence of the university not listening to our concerns when we arrived at campus, and not taking seriously all the issues that we raised about how our transition to university had been inadequate at best. You know, obviously we kind of lured onto campus under the false pretense of face-to-face teaching, which was very apparent very, very quickly once we got here that was not a reality that was going to happen, and understandably so with COVID. But we do strongly believe that the university was well aware that it would never be a reality, and that they did lie to us to bring us onto campus to make sure that we were going to pay our rent. However, unfortunately at Manchester, the issues really didn't stop there. For isolating flats when, you know, there was an inevitable COVID outbreak due to the living in close quarters with everybody. There was no support from the university around getting food, doing laundry, collecting mail, to the point where the university they did advise certain flats to go out and go food shopping, even if they had tested positive for COVID, if that was the only way for them to get food. And we feel like that should have never happened. The university should have had an action plan in place. We've also had flooding within our accommodation and pests, not to mention, the racial profiling that Zach spoke so eloquently about earlier. We also have confirmed from the university that a few days around the same time as this incident with Zach, a peaceful protest was planned to be held on campus around many of these issues, and the university did call the police and ask the police to come down to accommodation campus around that issue. And so we did end up with riot vans, outside the places that we live. So it's become very apparent that the university administration does not care about us. They do not care. No thought was put into our move to university. It has all been about profits. But this is not a Manchester-specific problem. Across the country, hundreds of thousands of students were moved during a global pandemic simply to be profited off by multiple universities. We've known for a while now that universities have been running like businesses. However, I think the global pandemic has definitely heightened this issue and made it a lot more obvious. So we have been on rent strike since October. But we are rent striking not just in protest of what happened in September, October, and November, but also in solidarity with our fellow students in second and third year who, are facing many of the same issues that we're facing, but are in private accommodation, so cannot rent strike the same way that we can. We are fighting against the greater issue of the marketization of universities and how this has become precedent for universities to prioritize profit over their staff and over their students. But this is a national movement. This isn't just a Manchester rent strike. It's not just a Bristol rent strike. In January, we will have hundreds of thousands of students on rent strike, hopefully, withholding millions of pounds from universities across the country. And I have to admit that when I came to university, I was expecting to do some campaigning work, but campaigning against my university and against, being treated just kind of not really like humans and not kind of being respected by my university it's not the campaign that I kind of envisioned was gonna happen. But the people that I've met through the rent strikes and through all the solidarity from students, inside and outside the tower, to the local campaigning groups that have supported us, to the national network of rent strikers in the NUS, the passion and dedication and solidarity has been stronger than ever during this time. And I think it's clear that we're going to keep fighting for what we believe in. In Manchester, we did recently win no penalty early release clauses from our contracts, meaning that anyone in halls can go home and cancel their rent contracts, which is brilliant, as well as a 30% rent reduction for semester one, which is an amazing win. And it didn't come around without a lack of fighting and a lack of solidarity and a lack of really coming together in this sense that not only do students deserve better, but students really do demand better, and we are going to keep fighting. But it's not over for Manchester. We're going to remain on rent strike in January to make sure that we hold the university accountable. They've told us that they're going to improve our mental health services. They've told us that they're going to improve the maintenance issues, but we will not believe it until we see it. And we will continue to rent strike and continue to fight until we can see these things actually changing. I think January is going to be a massive moment for students across the country, whether that be through the rent strike or through the Students Deserve Better movement. We're all here together kind of campaigning for an education, without debt and without that feeling of exploitation. So yeah, I would say to anyone out there who's listening who's not involved, get involved. Find your local rent strike at your local uni that you attend. Obviously, if there isn't one, start one. Why not? We have a massive network of students who are all organising rent strikes. Many I've never organised a rent strike before. We're all new in this together, and we're all supporting each other. And yeah, we're here to fight together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lot. And I think that was that's a perfect little bit to end on. I think it's important that, action is already happening and people are already standing up and winning. Students are already winning. Like when I heard and saw everything that had developed with UOM and rent strike, I said, yeah, this is why I joined this movement, because students are powerful. And when students tell you they deserve better, they're going to get better, whether you like it or not. And you are a testament to that. The whole of UOM rent strike are a testament to student power. And I think it's really wrapped up the importance of that collective action, the importance of shared solidarity, the importance of being able to know that you have a right to fight. And when you do fight, you will see wins and you will see results. And I guess that leads me on to bringing us to the end of this amazing rally. And there's never a rally that I'm at that doesn't end with an amazing galvanizing ender by Larissa Kennedy, our NUS national president. It's truly been an honor to host and just be the in-between person, but I'm going to leave you with Larissa, who is going to energize you. And hopefully you've interacted with all of our action points that you've seen on the banner. But Larissa, take it away, energize us, take us home.
Well, I'll see what I can do. Thank you so much, Hilary, for being our resident VPMC. It's been incredible. I've been backstage watching and just so grateful for every speaker that's come on and inspired and empowered us. Okay, let me get into it. Wow. All I can say is wow. This set of speakers have just been incredible, and at the end of a really tiring, exhausting term where, students have faced so much uncertainty. We've been forced to literally rent strike because we've been at the brink financially. We've had to set up mutual aid groups where unis failed us and, where they was charging extortionate prices to get food and household products into student lockdowns. All these things have happened. And yet the student movement is standing strong. And all those who are backing us are standing strong alongside us. So now we're building on the wins we've had this term, from the rent rebates to all the other wins. And, just today we heard from the government that there's going to be £20 million injected into student hardship funds. That's something that we've long fought for and now won. So a massive shout out to the team at NUS and all those who've been fighting for that as well. And, I just feel so ready hearing all of those speeches, hearing all of that energy, ready to take this on. We heard from Green, the president of Queen's Belfast SU, about the frustration that students are facing in NI with a rallying cry to organise. And then we heard from Myri and Joy, who gave us that insight into the situation of student nurses. And in fact, they really spoke to the realities for every student who's working alongside study. And that is the vast majority of us. And then Kay dropped some fire takes around student organising in Wales and the power that we have when we come together. Gargi, of course, just energized us. Oh my gosh, honestly, the solidarity in our little group chat we have about the people helping organise this, we really almost shed a tear at their words. Keir came on and reminded us that the marketisation and in fact the financialisation of universities makes their position as landlords incredibly precarious when we come together, organise and rent strike. So a good reminder to have in our back pockets. Zach came on and I'm so grateful to him for sharing something that is so raw but such a real reality for Black students across the country. For us as Black folks, we've seen these institutions putting out empty platitudes, telling us that they align with the Black Lives Matter movement. And then a hop, skip and a jump later, we're seeing anti-Black securitization on campus continue to pervade the lives of Black students. So we will continue to rail against that too. Flo spoke so well about the organising happening across student associations in Scotland. And trust me, that TikTok better find me. And I'm so excited to see more digital organising from students and really utilising those platforms available to us to have our voices heard. And then, we really wrapped that up so well with Lot leaving us with that glimmer of hope, that vision that in January, hundreds of thousands of students could be on rent strike and withholding millions of pounds across the country from universities. So that is the power that we hold. That is what we're moving towards. And I just want to end with this. We're living through what campaign theorists call a moment of the whirlwind, which is, where there is so much up in the air, there's so much happening that it creates the opportunity for real change. And that's the change that we're creating. The energy in this space, the energy we've been hearing from these speakers is driving forward into the next term to build that change. And so I just want to say a massive thank you to all our speakers, to all the student organisers who've been part of the Students Deserve Better collective and helped create this, all of the NUS team that have come along. A special shout out to Auntie Diane, because we love her, a true queen, for her incredible words. And, just keep keep demanding that students deserve better, and we will win. Let's get it right. I will see you all later. And thank you so much for joining us for the rally. Peace out. That's us.